Welcome to So You Want to Start a Business podcast. I am your host, Ingrid Thompson. I started this podcast so that we can all learn from listening to business owners talking about their startup experiences and their lessons learned. Each episode is your opportunity to pick up tactics to try in your business wherever you are in your business journey. We keep these conversations lively and informative. I'm your host, Ingrid Thompson, and I've been running my own business, Healthy Numbers, for 20 years. And over that time, I have worked with hundreds of people to help them build and grow their own business, successful and thriving businesses. I'm the author of the book with the same name as this podcast, So You Want to Start a Business. Today, we meet Salle Huber. And Salle worked for many years for others. And then she reached that point where she just knew it was time to start her own business. Here we meet Salle. Hello, and here we are today with Salle Huber. Salle, I have been so excited to record this conversation. Welcome.
Thank you. I've been excited to be here.
Indeed. So, Salle, what is your business? Just how do you describe your business?
Well, I'm a movement teacher. I teach Pilates. I teach something called the Melt Method, which is a very groundbreaking but simple self-care technique for your connective tissue. And I call myself a movement teacher because I'm not a traditional Pilates instructor. And I think because of that, I want people to know that up front, because otherwise they're disappointed. It's not the same. And I think that throws people off.
Yeah. So you are Pilates trained. It's just your take on what Joseph Pilates
That's
originally
exactly right.
taught.
And I teach Pilates, and I'm not, I'm true to the way that I was taught. I'm a Stott Pilates trained, and I have a lot of respect for their training, but I just have had so many learning opportunities in my life to look at the body in a myriad of ways. And that's what I do.
Yeah. And so when you talk about movement, it's about making sure people can move. And just remind us what connective tissue is for those of us that can't remember which of the bits of the body are.
Connective tissue, a lot of times you hear fascia, connective tissue, fascia, is like a three-dimensional body web, a structural, flexible structure that we have. It wraps around every organ, every muscle. It's what pulls the bones apart into alignment in our embryology and development. It's how the body communicates with itself. It is the biggest sensory organ in the body, but it's also, for hundreds of years was considered nothing but packing tape. When you looked at connective tissue in a prepared body after death, the connective tissue is dried out. And so even in the medical profession, recently, they really considered it packing material. And it wasn't until they were able to film living tissue under the skin that they were like, wait, this is doing something. This is doing something.
It's not just there for nothing.
It's not just there, to plump us up or something. And so it has a profound effect on absolutely everything. Layers and layers of one piece of connective tissue. Our connective tissue is seamless, and it morphs into different shapes and folds over itself. It's miraculous. And training in connective tissue with the Melt Method and its creator, Sue Hitzman, absolutely elevated and transformed my teaching. I mean, yeah, it was life-changing.
Salle, thank you so much for such an in-depth. I mean, I've been aware of connective tissue and fascia and the body for so long, but I've never heard it quite described like that. Thank you so much. So back to the business. When did you start your business?
I started my business, which is called the Aware Lab for Movement and Creativity, in May of 2021. So I'm still pretty new. I opened still in the throes of the pandemic. But I've been teaching Pilates since '08 and Melt since 2012.
Yeah, so you'd been in the environment for a long time, but your actual own business was in 2021. And why? Why did you want to have your own business?
I could not succeed working for anyone else. Nobody believed in what I was doing as much as I did, or enough. And so I couldn't succeed. I was always trying to convince people that what I did had value. And I felt like I was surrounded by people who were trying to convince me that my work didn't have value. And, I wasn't getting anywhere. It was kind of demoralizing for me. And after it happened a couple of times, I went, that's enough. There were times I was going to give up, but there was just nothing else I knew how to do as well. I was like, and I had to go back to the people who had all along said, you've made such a difference. This work has made such a difference. I'm so grateful for you. I had to hang on to those people and emotionally and here, because some of them, I lived in California for a while. I lived in Chicago for a while. I had to hold their love and support. And finally I was like, I just got to open my own place. And it was absolutely the right choice.
It was indeed. So is there a point when, and we're talking about a couple of years now, is there a point in that couple of years when you've thought to yourself, okay, this is a real business. I'm really in business. When is that in that time for you?
I thought about that question, the first time I thought I had that moment was the first time I brought in a piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I had owned a Cadillac reformer, a Cadillac trapeze table and a rehab reformer with a tower. So I was all set, I just moved everything in on my melt rollers. When I bought my stability chair, my first piece of equipment, I thought, oh, I'm in business. Now I look back and I go, that was a baby step. That was a baby step. I think when people started talking about me to their physician, to their chiropractor, to their massage therapist, people that they turned to consistently, and they wanted to share what they were doing with me. And then we're validated. Oh yeah, that really solidified it for me.
That's such an interesting answer to the question, Sally, because it wasn't that they were telling their mum or they were telling their friend or one of their colleagues at work. What you're talking about there is the fact that they were telling someone in the medical profession that they were consulting on a regular basis about the impact that the work you were doing. That is enormously validating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Congratulations,
and not
Sally.
Everybody that they told got it. Some people did. They were like, oh yeah, that, that matches what we talk about. Some people were like, not responding. And that's the way life is, right? Sometimes your doctor doesn't respond, or the people that you're turning to, they don't have time to look with such a big, broad picture.
But to me, that sounds like that cycles back to the very reason you started your business in the first place, that there were other folk that you were working with in the industry who didn't recognize the value of the contribution you were making.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the same kind of not being able to see the true value. So let's talk about those customers of yours. And as you said, you had worked in various locations around the States. And how did you, when you very first started working at the Aware Lab, when you set up your business, how did you get your first customers? How did they know what you were offering and where did they come from?
Well, my very first customers were people I had worked with at a different place. So I moved to a small town, St. Joseph, Michigan, about an hour and a half out of Chicago in May of 2017. And I started working at a traditional Pilates studio, not a classical Pilates studio, but just what you would expect from a modern Pilates studio. And so I had probably 3 or 4 clients come with me from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other way that I brought people in almost right away was from the facility where my studio is. So I'm in a big old factory, the box factory for the arts. It was bought by the local Berrien County Artists Guild and turned into an art facility dedicated to supporting artists. So affordable studios for them, and very much a community already. And they allowed me to rent my space there. And many of my clients are tenants or members of the Berrien Artists Guild and the Box Factory.
It sounds like that's a great location for you to have chosen. And I know, choosing the location for our business is a big deal when we have to have a physical space because of the costs involved. How did you know about this space, and how did you go about negotiating that?
Well, it's right down the street from where I live. I had just quit my job at the Pilates studio in town. I was so discouraged. And I was walking with a neighbor, and she said, I would love to see you at the Box Factory. I love the Box Factory. And so I called the Box, and I called a couple other places. I had thought about teaching in my basement, but I've got dogs everywhere. I was just like, I can't, that's not going to work. And I had looked at renting, traditional studios. I didn't want 6 or 8 reformers. I wanted to work one-on-one with people. I wanted to just run my business in the easiest way that I could. And so, I saw these studios, and I saw a space that I thought would be perfect. It had a small section for my equipment and a little other room that I could use for small group classes, which I don't really teach so much. And, at luck and a prayer got me there. But it was the greatest decision. And I would turn around and say to people, if you can join a community, right? Then I don't have to conquer my whole community or my whole county. I can conquer the building, right? A pre-existing group of people. My rent was lower as a result because I was in this not-for-profit building, and it enabled me to get involved with the organization. I volunteer. I'm on the board. Everybody knows me. If you can find a situation like that, where the pressure is off, I'm not paying thousands of dollars a month for rent so that I have to change my heartfelt business model. It just has meant the world to me. And most of my clients come from the Box Factory. They're tenants or members.
Or members, or people who come through for the various activities and things. It's such an interesting model, Sally, and it does make me think that, down the track or currently, this sort of idea of community building for businesses is something that's really working in a number of different fields. And I feel like it's the creatives, the artistic, the musical that are better able to do that. I know we have not really men's sheds, but we have, factories or warehouse spaces that have been divided into spaces that people can have a small workshop area. So they're not doing it in their home. I know there's lots of people doing stuff in their homes as well, but there is something really nice about being able to be out amongst like-minded people. It's a bit like the hot desk workspace that they have for businesses that just need a computer and their brain cells, and whereas this is actually quite a different. I love that you're creative in the body and how you're able to be part of that community. It's enormously affirming for you to be able to have that financially that allows you to do the work, because I think that financial pressure is huge. So speaking of financial, like you said, you didn't want to teach group classes. You didn't want 10 reformers or 6 reformers. You wanted to be able to do one-on-one. How did you go about considering and finding out and figuring out your financial viability when you were getting started by yourself?
Well, I knew that I had some savings in my bank account that I could rely on. And I knew pricing wise the general area where I'd land, because I had taught with those pricing models all along. Not so different from when I taught in Los Angeles versus when I was in this small town. Generally speaking, it's easy to figure out what Pilates teachers are earning. And that was the model that I went with. I work one-on-one with people, and I certainly am more therapeutic in my approach. And I probably could have had higher prices more akin to a life coach or something like that. But I chose not to. I could model myself after what I'd been doing all along and guess how much money I could earn because of that. And also what expenses did I have? I pay well under $1,000 a month. I have insurance. I already owned my equipment. I had already completed all of my training. Not that I don't want to do more training. You always want to keep training, but I was set in that way. I was established. I was a mature teacher.
Yeah. And I think as well, like since starting, and Sally, like full disclosure here, I've been part of this journey with you. So I've seen some of it. So for the listeners, if I'm asking a question, it sounds like I know the answer, or I know some of the background to the answer. You've also implemented some software, you've hired people, you've built a website. So you've actually done all the things that a business does, even though you're inside this sort of community space. There's nothing else that's different. The only thing that's really different is the fact that you have assisted rent because of the fact that you're in that community. But everything else you've done is a regular business. You're paying yourself really well. You're paying and covering your health costs, your health insurance. So you're running the business like a proper business, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And studying the numbers and, recognizing there are times of quiet. I live in a lake community in a cold weather environment. So you might have 3 or 4 people gone for weeks, months over the winter, snowbirds. And, you have to be ready for that, ready for new people to want to come in, old people coming and going. Oh my God, so much juggling of schedules. I have to tell you though, I work very much one-on-one. People text me, they ask me, I want to change. They're not going through the scheduling app. We mostly I accept payment through Venmo. Some people bring me cash. Some people bring me checks. I work with a variety of ages. Not everybody's comfortable playing with complicated software. And so I have found it easier to do it the way I do it. Yeah.
It's so interesting as a tiny aside. So I'm in Sydney and it's 2023 in the beginning of August, the end of July for you. And this winter, our winter, which is now, which is the northern summer, it has really impacted a lot of people in the cities because we've had our own version of snowbirds. It's not snowbirds as such, but people have gone, because this has been the first year since everything happened 3 years ago, that people have felt really comfortable about traveling great distances. But they're not just going to Europe, mostly Europe, not to the US from here. They're not just going for a week or 2 or 4 weeks, which is the traditional. People are going for 3 and 4 months and 8 weeks and 10 weeks.
They can work from there.
Well, they can work from there, or they've got this pent-up demand. And because a lot of the Pilates studios attract a person who might have the flexibility of that time, they have felt what you've always felt is that big gap for this 3 or 4 months of what is traditionally our winter and tends to be more stable. So that's been a really interesting shift in our business, because Christmas is our summer, and that's when we tend to have, like, everybody knows there's going to be the quiet January. But I think this May, June, July, August, and people are still September, October. So we've had this massive length of time where people have gone, and that's really, people are feeling it across businesses, in restaurants and Pilates studios, and even the real estate agents in those, in some areas, closed down for over a month because they know that the exodus to the warmer climates. It's fascinating. I find this fascinating in how a business like yours manages to, because you're not having those 20 people every week for the 52 weeks of the year. You've got this up and down all the time. How do you mentally cope with that, Sally? Because it takes a mental attitude to cope with the ups and downs of those numbers.
My numbers aren't that drastically different, and I'll tell you, first of all, why is that people will think I'm all booked up. I'll get to a point where I'll have 27, 29 sessions in a week, and remember, people are telling their practitioners about me and all that, and I'll get a call and I'll be like, are you even taking new people? And I'll be like, well, as luck would have it, my Monday, Wednesday, Friday 10 o'clock person just went to Ireland for the month, and so you can have his time right now. And so I think that the challenge there is forging a relationship with your people so that when they come back, they slide into their spot. So for instance, I have a guy, he's getting ready to go somewhere for a month. And in the spring, he goes for 5 months to Florida. Okay. He comes in at 9 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's his time when he comes back. That's Mike's time. But then somebody else can move into his time when he's gone. But he knows when I come back, Sally's expecting me. She's got my time that I earned because I was, one of her first clients, and we're forging a relationship so that they come back. And then when the new people come in, right, in January, he's just left, but all those people who say, oh, it's January and I finally need to get in shape. The trick is making them feel important, feeling, welcoming them in, and then keeping them. So I got a big influx of new people in January. Most of them I was able to keep, a couple not, but mostly I was able to keep them long term. So
isn't that fantastic? Well done.
That's the big thing is I don't want you going somewhere else. I don't want you saying, well, she doesn't have a good time for me, so I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'm going to start boxing now, or I don't know, whatever, they're mine and I'm theirs.
Yeah. And I would imagine the work you're doing all the time with them is making their bodies feel so good that there's no way they're going boxing, or if they are, they're coming back to you.
Well, I mean, I love it if they wanted to go boxing, but also it's highly personal. It's highly personal.
Your service is highly personal. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So so I don't know that we've talked about it, but I work with a variety of abilities. So yes, the aging population, but which is, its own subset, and everybody's even different within that. But also people who, what did I write down? A safe place where people who are challenged by their everyday movement can learn about their body and build a personal toolkit of techniques that will help them build strength and confidence with less pain. So, these are people with MS, with Parkinson's, overcoming a cancer diagnosis, lupus, all these kind of things that people are trying to cope with. And there's a I see you kind of aspect to this work. I see you. Sue Hitzman, who created Melt, did this great interview with Joanne Avison, who is also a gifted anatomist and fascial expert. And she said, Joanne, sometimes I wonder if it isn't just that the love that I have for my clients is communicating with the love that they have and healing them.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe that's I see you and you're perfect just as you are. Maybe that's part of the healing process too.
It's so interesting. And, if you think about this is a business podcast, and to be talking about those sorts of aspects of the relationship that you have with your clients, there's a lot of business people who don't think like that. It's how many, when you talk about numbers and we talk about sessions and, you're talking about Mike and Mike's special needs, special abilities, special toolkit, that his personal toolkit that you've built together. And I feel like in a lot of businesses, that sense of the one-to-one connection is not there. And the people are, number 674 in a system, and somebody else is number X45. And, it's that level of one-on-oneness that has allowed you to build the sort of successful business that you have.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I also think, though, when I look back, the very first Pilates studio I ever worked at, the Pilates Body in Willowbrook, Illinois, one of the things that the owner there did was create a community, right? They're still open. They've experienced hardship and joy and birth and death and all of that, and they're still there. And many of the clients who were there when I was there in 2012, around then, are still there. I see it on the Facebook page. So that was an early lesson for me. Create a family. And I think that can be true of a yoga studio, of a fitness boot camp place. It can be it. We're all going to get together, and by golly, I'm going to get up and go because my teacher and my class are expecting me. So I don't think you have to have my exact business model, which is so personal and so insular, to have that sense of community. How many people do you know that go, well, I would never get up and go out and walk or take my boot camp class at 5:30 if, the girls in my class weren't there. And they'd be like, what the heck, where were you?
Yeah. Where were you? And now, if you think back to 2012, it didn't exist, but now we have the chats and the groups, and, you post a photo of everybody out there at 6 o'clock in the morning or at 5:30 doing their thing in the dark, and then it's like, oh, I need to be there. Like they had
that looks fun. Yeah. Those look like my people. Right.
Yeah, they're my people. So, you're absolutely right.
And everybody's going to be different. Right. The thing that my clients love about me, somebody who's looking for a HIIT class or a really grueling Pilates class, they don't intertwine.
Yeah. And that's why there's room for everybody, isn't there, Sally? There truly is room for everybody in this world.
There's room for everybody, and know your niche.
Know your niche
exactly right away. Yeah. Are you the fun one? Are you the one with the great music? Are you, the one that people tell everything to? Are you the one that always works with the people who have chronic pain? I mean, that's, you got to know your niche. You can't, maybe you can, but I found it, when you're starting out, you try to be there for everyone. But eventually there comes a time where you have to say, this is my specialty, and I'm going to run with it. I'm going to learn everything I can. I'm not going to dilute it trying to be everything to everybody. And as a result, I have the best clients in the whole world. They're perfectly suited to me.
And I'm sure they love you. So a reflection question, if you could take a magic wand, and we know magic wands don't exist and we can't go back in time, but what might you have done differently?
Oh, I'd have started earlier.
Oh my gosh, if I could have $1 every time a guest said that.
Oh my gosh. May I tell a story?
Yeah.
I worked for somebody who wasn't completely certified in her training, didn't know the business aspects of her business, had a thriving business anyway. And I thought, I know way more than she does. What the heck? And I wasn't happy working for her. So I went out on my own. And I credit her with so much of it. Because first of all, I said, I know way more than her. What's been holding me back? And second of all, her approach was, I'm going to open and then I can learn later. And it was working for her, right? Sure, she had the stress of making mistakes along the way, but she was still succeeding. And I'm one of those who likes everything to be perfect, right? I wanted to know everything before I opened. And one of the things that you and I worked through, because I've worked with you as a mentor and a coach, was find the people who can help you. Don't think I have to know every single thing in order to run a successful business. Be aware of what everybody's doing. Don't, put blinders on, but find a bookkeeper, find a business coach. There's a place called Cornerstone Alliance. It's a not-for-profit, and there's one in my community in Benton Harbor next door, and they had a women's business center. They didn't charge me anything. They got me all my certifications and my business ID number, and now you need to do this. Now you need to do this. I caught up with you, and I had my book, right? So you want to start a business. Oh, okay, there's my checklist, and I'm writing it down. I hired a bookkeeper. I hired a business manager. Those people, they help me, they elevate me, they teach me, and they enable me to do the work that I do best. Like, don't try to do it by yourself.
No, you can't do it by yourself. It really is. Has there been times, because you talked about when you were teaching for other people, you felt like you just give up altogether and like just walk away, and you did in fact walk away. Has there been tough times in the business when you've felt a bit like that you just want, like, and what has made it tough? And maybe you haven't, because you've
I have not had any of those times since I've been at the Aware Lab. But remember, I'm 59 years old. I was 57 when I opened. I had been teaching for a long time, and I had experienced a lot of failure along the way. I experienced a lot of success along the way, but when you're hearing support and something uplifting, and then you hear something negative, the negative has way more power over you. And it really did slow me down. I mean, it's like, I gotta convince everybody again. And so I think that's why. I'm not saying that I won't fail again, but I'm just saying I'm still absolutely in a honeymoon period. But I've learned a lot from failing.
Yeah. So you're bringing all that experience. I think as one of my other guests said, you never know where you're going, and all the experience we have in life takes us to where we're headed now. Sally, where do you get good feedback from? Like, we talk about feedback coming from all kinds of different areas in 2023. Where do you take your best feedback from?
Well, my clients, I mean, they're the ones that are, when they say, oh my God, I've told this person and this person and this person, I want this person to come in and work with you. That. So that feedback. But also there's feedback like, oh, we did blah, blah, blah last Thursday, and experience this, that, or the other thing. Well, okay, I could say, well, that don't have anything to do with me, but chances are it does. Right? If I'm working with you day in, day out, and I'm challenging you and nurturing you, right? I'm protecting you and I'm challenging you at the same time. And we take a step forward and it bothers you and you're not complaining about it in the moment, then I have to say, what did we do that might have caused this discomfort? And how can we learn from it? You know, I don't think that that's too outlandish. And I think that's a grown-up way of looking at it, right?
Yeah.
And I think clients appreciate that.
Yeah. And having the capacity and the confidence to say in the moment, no, this isn't working. And that is one of the things that I notice in group classes and group sessions is often the person's just busy getting on with it or just stops doing it. And the instructor is so busy with so many other people that there isn't room for that that sort of immediate feedback that you're talking about there.
Right. And a lot of people are able-bodied and they can stop what they're doing, or they can do something else, or they can barrel through and it won't bother them that much. That's not going to happen to a person who has a spinal cord injury. You know, you need personal one-on-one attention. And you have doctors maybe telling you, you have got to be moving. You have got to be moving. And it's like, well, where am I going to go? You know, I can't. Am I going to go CrossFit? No. You know, even a big yoga class or anything like that, there are just only so many places that you can go. And a lot of studios don't want private clients, right? They're not,
that's not their model.
They're not qualified, and B, they're looking for that $30 a head times 6 or 10 reformers. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That is a wonderful business model, but it's not for everybody. Right?
No,
it doesn't.
That's right. The clients don't work for all of that. All right. So speaking of business models, if somebody listening to this is thinking about having their own business, whether it's as a movement professional or somebody in the fitness wellbeing space or completely unrelated to that, what would be, you know, what would you say to someone thinking of starting their own business?
Well, I think you have to know your why. I think you really have to know your why. To me, it seems unheard of that somebody would open a business just because. I know that people do it, but I'm like, this is my purpose in life. So, you know, there's that. You have to open a business that you think you're going to like. Are you a people person? Are you, or, you know, that's a really tough question. I think be prepared, ask for help. Oh my gosh, ask for help, because a lot is possible that way. Yeah. Do what you love and ask for help.
Yeah, I think that's, and that idea of knowing your why and doing something you love. It's so important for people, isn't it? Oh, Sally, we could talk for ages. I don't know we have.
I know.
Anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with as we draw this to a close?
Yes, I think, you know, I've talked a lot about failure and success and ending up somewhere that has been so positive for me. One thing that I've learned is when you work for someone and nothing is gelling, nothing's coming together, people don't believe in you, take a good look. Am I doing work of value? I mean, maybe you're lousy at it. Maybe you are, and you need to ask people around you. I mean, you know, when people don't believe in you, you question, am I even good at what I do? But when you take a good hard look at that and you say, yes, the work I do has value and there are people who need me and I'm not succeeding where I'm at, you owe it to yourself to go create it yourself. All right. You go out there and you create what you think isn't there yet. And just trust that if that's the right choice, everything falls into place. It's so hard, jump in the leap and the net will appear. Sometimes the net does not appear. And you go, okay, I'm going to dust myself off and get back up there. But when you really land in the right place, you'll know it. Yeah. You'll know it because it all comes together.
It's so true.
The great Anne Lamott, who is a writer, has a quote. She says, don't quit before the miracle. Just keep going. Don't quit before the miracle.
Just keep going, indeed. Yeah. Sally, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your enthusiasm, your energy, and for the wonderful work you do in the world.
Oh, right back at you, my darling.
What a terrific conversation, and some really wise words there from Sally, and some great examples and so much value there. Sally really has carved out a truly unique niche for herself. As she says, know your niche. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with another business owner, a colleague, or friends and family. Please share it. And I'm super grateful if you leave a review. We know that helps more people find our podcasts. For everyone listening, whether this is your first episode or you've been with us for some time, I truly believe that whatever you are dreaming about can become real. These podcasts are designed to inspire, educate, and inform about what it takes to start, create, and grow a business of your own. Make it easy to have all the latest episodes by subscribing to the podcast. As we always say, ideas without action, well, they're just that, aren't they? Ideas. And that's fine. But I'd like to ask you, what action are you inspired to take today? Till the next time, thanks for listening.